The Morning Drive is sponsored by Power Metallic. To find out more about the company, please visit their website at powermetallic.com. Follow the Money Investor Group is a 100% Indigenous-owned company and certified with the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business.
Peter.
Hey, pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I graduated in Halifax at St. Mary's University in 1988, and it wasn't a great time actually to move into the mining exploration industry because we just had one of those crashes that happens in our industry, and 1987 wasn't a great time. So moved around Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, but fairly quickly found myself doing international work for a junior mining company, firstly in British Guyana, a group out of Toronto called 8X Mining, and moved on from there to some projects, porphyry copper projects in the Philippines. So those early years were very rapidly focused on international exploration, largely gold and copper. So I had that initial experience, basic exploration internationally. And then I actually started my own consulting company called BRM Exploration, and I had as a client Rio Tinto. One of their subsidiary companies called US Borax was responsible for specialty mineral exploration throughout North America. And we were their go-to consultants for that work. So I did that for a number of years. Had a partner, and we had projects with Western Mining, a number of mid-sized companies as well as Rio Tinto. And in 1996, I had a call from the individual who had hired me for 8X Mining and said, we're looking for a corporate development head in Toronto. And I arrived there, moved back to Toronto in 96. And very quickly that morphed from corporate development sitting in Toronto to, would you like to go have a look at Mongolia? It's opening up to foreign investment. And sure enough, I arrived there in the early 1997 period, and became a co-project manager with a now past good friend and eventually business partner of mine, Chris Cowan. And we ran the largest ever regional exploration program in Mongolia from 1997 to 1999. We had 5 million hectares of ground. We had 100 geologists. We had hired all of the top professors in exploration or in geology in the country, and we ultimately brought in Barrick Gold in a joint venture partnership in 1998, and we drilled some targets. And talking about that 1987 period when I entered the industry and the crash that happened then, 1998 was one of the low points in our business. We saw commodity prices just plummet. We saw copper.
Chinese, something going on in China?
Well, it was the Asian financial crisis was
Right.
part of that. You had BRICS. You had copper prices at 60 cents. I think gold was $2.60 and $19 a barrel oil. So it was just like
Bad time.
shut down any exploration globally. And so that first wave of exploration into Mongolia that we were on just crashed. There's probably a dozen, maybe as many as 20 companies that had come into Mongolia almost overnight and left just as quickly.
But you were kind of first to market into Mongolia, right?
That's right. We were. So when I say first, though, it's almost like that next wave. So a number of junior mining companies came in. I'm one of the few geologists that came in early. We had this massive program, had the best Country 101 course I could have on Mongolia, and then there's a vacuum. Everybody leaves.
Right.
And I sat there in 1998 and said, you know what? We're looking at one of the greatest gold copper belts on the planet, and nobody's explored it, and the government's desperate to get foreign investment, and everybody just left.
Right.
Is this not the opportunity you wait for in our business? And so I went back to Canada, actually worked in the US on some of those Rio Tinto projects I worked on earlier. But basically what I did for the next 2 years was told everybody I could in our business that this opportunity existed. Let's start a company to focus on exploration in Mongolia. So 19 99 to 2001, I gathered that interest and eventually formed Erdene in 2002 privately. We brought in, it was Dundee, Salida Capital.
Some big names.
Yeah, and we, mom and pop kind of financed the rest of it and raised a few $1 million to start things privately. So that happened in 2002. 2003, I went in to see National Bank, and they backed a bought deal to launch us into the public markets, and that was TSXV. And we quickly made an acquisition of Mohammed Al Fayed's properties in Mongolia. He had a company called Gallant Minerals. Actually closed the deal in Harrods Department Store in 2005, and brought on a project that allowed us to elevate from the TSXV to the TSX. And that's really where things started to kick off with our Mongolia focus in that 2004-2005 period. And I can get into that in more detail, but that's kind of the launching of Erdene into the Mongolian mineral exploration industry.
How has mining in that district evolved over the last 25 plus years?
Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing thing to watch. So, we arrive into a country that is still that former Soviet system, very bureaucratic, cumbersome, slow-moving, and almost no exploration, no sort of creative exploration, certainly not in the southern part of the country. During those Russian-influenced years, they were looking for industrial metals largely that could support their economy, but largely in the area in the north where you had infrastructure. The southern half of the country, until recently, was pretty much empty of any infrastructure. There's one rail line that went south, the Siberian Railway, but an absence of exploration. So you had a few kind of monolithic enterprises that mined some old deposits, but really no exploration. Then you move into that 2001 period, and Robert Friedland hits that first high-grade intersection at Oyu-Tolgoi.
Mm-hmm.
This is July of 2001, I think, was the first real interesting hole. And this is still, kind of in the depths of despair in terms of interest in our sector. So even with that, I think he had just come out of, what was it, Indochina Goldfields, became Ivanhoe, and it was trading around $1.50 and was just under pressure. So even when he hit that first hole, it didn't move much in the first little while. But as they progressively
built it out,
demonstrated how big that deposit was, then that stock moved, as the cycle turned positive, it moved to, I think, $28 a share. And today, as you probably know, is about to become the fourth largest copper gold producer in the planet by the end of this decade. So, that obviously fueled interest in Mongolia, and there's been various waves of interest and activity. But today, when I look around that country and think about what's happened since that time in the early 2000s, you obviously have Oyu-Tolgoi. But adjacent to that, you have Zijin and a company called Bastion, who have just taken out Xanadu on a very large copper gold, lower grade than OT, but moving towards development. There's another European bank-funded project called Sagan Savarga nearby that's almost complete construction. So now you have 3 porphyry, copper gold, copper molybdenum deposits, all of which will likely be in production over the next 5 or 6 years. In that vicinity, you have giant coking coal mines that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, and now they're the largest producers of steelmaking coal into China. Massive infrastructure with that, railway, blacktop highways, towns have grown up. North of that, not far, northeast, you have the French government-backed Erdene building a uranium mine that's going to be the 6th largest uranium mine in the world. So you've got this breadbasket in southern Mongolia where you have these peaks and valleys, where in the peaks you've got these porphyry, copper, and epithermal golds, and in the valleys you've got these Permian coal basins, and alongside of that you have the uranium deposit. So it's really a breadbasket of natural resources that largely feeds into China that have now all taken off. And those are some of the big ones, but around the country there's probably 6 mostly private hard rock gold mines, heap leach, and with us CIP plants. So a tremendous change from almost an absence of exploration and mining to some of the largest mines in the world now being in production.
Is there still any exploration upside here?
Oh, Tremendous. This is the 19th largest country in the world. Only 4% of the country's under license. There's been very little regional exploration. In fact, the Canadian government is funding a airborne geophysical program in Mongolia currently because it doesn't exist. There's been dated mapping in most of these areas, but we're a good example of this. We went out there in 2010, found our first deposit at Altanar. First drill hole was 23 meters of 2 grams pretty much from surface, and we're picking up high-grade samples at surface. 5 years later, we went to Bayan Hyundai within 16 kilometers, and we're picking up 4,000 gram samples at surface. First drill hole was 7 meters of almost an ounce of gold, not more than 10 meters below surface. Fast forward another 5 years, and we found Dark Horse, which is 50,000 ounces of 7 gram material sitting exposed at surface. It's just almost incomparable in any of the places I've worked around the world to see this amount of visible mineralization at surface. We have 3 43-101 deposits, gold polymetallic, and moly copper, all of which are exposed at surface, and nobody knew of them until we went out there and did our basic exploration. So, and in most cases we've only done shallow drilling and focused our exploration on those deposits. So it's just a fabulous amount of exploration upside in our district, but throughout the country. One of the impediments to that, though, is that the Mongolian government initially was a map staking system, and today is a tender system that opens in small windows. It's hard to get land positions. It's hard to get large land positions. They keep saying they're going to change that, but it's challenging for a new company to come in and get a substantial asset base.
That's good for you, though, right?
It is, yeah. And we continue to work closely with government. Obviously, we're well known to the government agencies and politicians, and now with a partnership with MMC, who's perhaps the most recognized and credible mining company in the country, we can get a lot of things moving, talking to mines ministers, suggesting they open up more tenders. We're seeing that our partner, Batsangal Gotov, Dr. Batsangal Gotov, is the president of MMC, our partner, but he's also the president of the Mongolian National Mining Association. And just throw this in, the Mongolian National Basketball Federation as well. So we do have basketball courts at our new camp.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to stay active.
Yeah,
and
but
decompress from work, right?
Exactly. It's important. We're a remote camp, and we have 350 people living in our new accommodation center, but there's not a whole lot to do out there. So we have built a very large gymnasium with basketball courts inside and out, fitness facilities. Yeah, it's important.
Any Raptors jerseys floating around?
I don't think there's any Raptors jerseys, no, but I should work on that one, actually. We're actually talking to the Canadian government about increasing our activity on sponsoring hockey initiatives in Mongolia. We've done some of that before, actually. Going back to my comments earlier about hockey, we have had Canadian-Mongolian friendship games and brought over gear and brought over trainers to help with Mongolian youth hockey players previously. So
okay.
I'm working on the hockey rink, but I'm not sure I'm going to win that battle at site.
An uphill battle?
Yeah, just need a few more hockey fans.
Let's talk about the cap structure. You've been at this company for a while. You've got the wind behind your back now. You've got exploration. How much of this company do you own?
So I own about 1% directly. When combined with the board, we're probably in the 5 to 6% range, directors and management.
Okay.
All of that has been largely purchased over the last, 23 years as a public company, directly in market, private placement, option exercise. We now have 61 million shares outstanding. As you probably know,
You rolled it back.
recently went through a consolidation, 6-1.
Timing was good, though.
The timing was very good, but I've talked to a number of people that have been in this situation, and as you move from an explorer to a producer, you need to attract a different set of clientele, if you will, shareholders, that are typically more in that high net worth or very high net worth institutional ETFs. And as you're aware, there's a number of restrictions on buying stocks below a certain threshold that varies, whether it's an index or whether it's an ETF or a broker out of the U.S. So when we planned the 6-to-1, we were trading at, let's say, 40 or 50 cents. So we would have been a $3 to $4 stock, which would have put us into that range of meeting or exceeding those thresholds to allow those investors to come in. Luckily, when we look at it now and the stock move with the gold price, we ended up launching at about $8, I guess, when the consolidation came through. That put us into the range of buying for those groups, and that fuel really helped us attract new investors, and immediately we saw a 4 to 5 to 1 increase in volume in our stock. So it worked out, very well for us. And let's hope that continues. We've attracted a new audience. I think it's not only North American-based investors, but partially through our exposure in Asia, through our current register and our partners listing in Hong Kong, we have gotten good exposure in the Asian markets as well.
Yeah. So you guys market out there, probably.
We do, yeah. So today, we're a bit of a rare bird, I guess, when it comes to other companies in the TSX, but we have funds holding us that are based in Malaysia, in Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, Turkey, and we're also listed on the Mongolian Stock Exchange, where we have 4% of our listed shares trading.
I like it.
Yeah.
Pretty broad distribution.
Yeah, it really is. And to add to that, another thing that's unique about us is coming from the East Coast, we've built a base of loyal shareholders who represent somewhere around 30% of our shares outstanding. And the vast majority of that is tied up in 3 or 4 people who've been supportive of us for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so when you add that, so you've got Eric Sprott in there at 23%. Our board, our Mongolian listing, our local Haligonian ownership. We've attracted a lot of new institutions out of the U.S. who I talk to regularly, some I've had on site. But
Sure.
quickly, on 2 hands, you can put together 70% of our shareholder base, so
Yeah.
quite tightly held.
I really like the story. What's your exit strategy? You've been at this for a while.
I'm as excited today, if not more, about what's in front of us. I think we can make tremendous value for our shareholders. And for me personally, it's still that thrill of the hunt. We
Still there.
discovered a new minerals district, and we made a strategic decision to develop the first gold mine to allow us to have the financial wherewithal to, in an undiluted fashion, explore it. And so when you look at this 40-kilometer radius area that we focused on with 4 licenses, you got the Bayan Khundii complex, you got the Altan Nar complex, and you have the Zuun Mod complex. These are all giant hydrothermal systems that are probably averaging about 10 kilometers in diameter. And in most cases, probably 10 to 20% of them have been explored in the near surface. But all that exploration is still in front of us, because really, I wouldn't say we've done it by the skin of our teeth, but we have not had a large amount of funding in the past to do general exploration. When we found something, we quickly moved it into a resource and spent most of our money doing that. So you have 500,000 ounces at Bayan Khundii, you have 500,000 ounces at Altan Nar, and you have now 800 million pounds of molybdenum equivalent at Zuun Mod. But that's where the vast majority of our expenditures have come from, in those 3 deposits. So all that exploration area is still in front of us. So that excites me. And coming back to the exit strategy, there's always a possibility that somebody wants to take you over, and we'll react to that when it comes along. But I'd like to see some more mileage put on here and be able to bring some of that other value home.
Well, I would like to thank the audience and yourself for joining me. I'll be doing an X Space with the company. So now you can go into the description of this video, and you can find the X Space link and the date, which you can put into your calendar. I'm going to drop you back off so you can get back to being productive and finding more shareholders.
No, I enjoyed that. That was good. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining me on the Morning Drive.
Thank you.